Today I'm going to be showing you how we can upload any website into a vector database. Now I do want to preface this video by saying don't do anything illegal, be scraping anything you shouldn't be scraping. The main use case I do see for this is doing work for a client. Maybe you're making them some sort of automation and you need information about their company. So a really easy way to do this is to scrape their website, put it together in a document, and then upload that document into a vector database. And that is exactly what I'm going to show you inside of this video. I just wanted to preface this by saying don't do anything illegal. So to get started, we can start with the web scraping aspect of this. So I will have a link to this template for completely free down in the description. So feel free to go down there, get the template, and then head over to N8N. So the template will be in the form of a JSON file. So once you've got that JSON file, we're going to sign into your N8N account. Once you log in, that will bring you to an overview page like this. What you're going to do is select create new workflow. And then since you have the template, we're going to go up to the top right here and select these three dots. Then you're going to select import from a file and select that file that you had just downloaded. So that will bring you to something like this. So we can start by looking at this HTTP request. Now this is going to be the step that is actually scraping the website. So to do this, we're going to be using a platform called Firecrawl, which I'll show you in just a second. But first I'm going to walk you through a little bit of what is actually happening inside this node. So we're going to Firecrawl to scrape the website here. You will have to insert your API key, which I'll show you how to get in just a second. And then you will also have to insert the URL or URLs that you actually want to search. Now you can look through the documentation, which I'll show you how to get to in just a second if you want to scrape multiple URLs here. But for now you can just paste in one here inside of these quotations and search or scrape that URL. So to get this API key, we're going to just look up Firecrawl. Let's look this up. So it's going to be this first one here, firecrawl.dev. And you can see it brings us to this page here. I'm going to log in. So you're creating an account here. It'll be completely free. Once you log in, it'll bring you to an overview page. And it makes it really nice and easy. It gives us an API key right here. So you're just going to click to copy this API key. So we can get that out of the way really quickly. We can go back and then insert that API key right here. So you want to make sure that it says bearer with a capital B. That will already be there. And then you're going to have a space and then your API key. So it should look something like this. And now we can go back to Firecrawl. Now what we can do from here is if you want to explore the documentation a little bit and see all the different things that you can do, we're going to select docs at the top right, and then you can scroll down to the features here. So I'm going to be using this scrape function. There's a lot of other things like crawl, map, and extract. I'll have another video coming out soon about this extract function. This is very, very powerful, and there are a lot of different things that we can do with this. So stay tuned for that as well. But for now, we're going to be looking at this scrape function here. So whenever you're using N8N, you're going to make sure that it's selected to curl here. I've already done all of that for you, but what you can do inside of N8N is select import from curl. You copy this just using this button right here, and then you can paste that into N8N, and it will fill in all of the appropriate fields here. So that is what I've done for you. You can change this depending on if you want to scrape different things as well. They have more settings in here that you can play around with, but for now we're just going to keep it simple. And then you can also get the URL that you want to scrape. So that you're just going to look up whatever website you're wanting to scrape and then scrape that website, and yeah, just paste that into this section here. So now that we've done that, we are good to go. We can click out of the HTTP request. And what this looks like is we actually get the response back in Markdown. So you could probably see that inside of the formats here. It formats it in Markdown. So this is just a way that the text is actually formatted. And if you've seen Markdown before, you know what I'm talking about. But so just as an example, I'll just scrape an N8N page here. So I'll copy their URL. You can go into here. I'll paste their URL into this section here. So what this does, it's going to scrape their page, test the step here. and you can see it comes back successful, and then it gives us all of this data in Markdown. Now we can read through the rest of this and you probably could kind of figure it out, but what this does is it includes all of the other links here, so you can see it's a little bit more difficult to read, especially for us humans. So you might be able to figure it out if you spent enough time reading through it, and you could probably add it to the document, but it would be really messy. So what we're going to do is we're going to use an OpenAI model here. I just chose the base model 3.5 turbo, the cheapest thing I could think of, and that's completely okay for what we're doing here. The only thing we're doing is we're just telling it to take this Markdown, summarize it a little bit, so take out the links, take out the formatting, put it into plain text, and then basically just feed it back to us. So it's not doing anything that requires advanced reasoning or anything like that. It's just processing this text here. This is just the easiest way to do that, to make sure that it efficiently takes the Markdown and then turns it into text that we can actually read. We can actually change the way that it responds. So this is very cool, and I'll show you what this looks like in just a second. So depending on what you actually want it to respond with, you can just have it respond with the plain text of the website. I chose to give it the company name as well, and what we're saying here is, one, we're just telling it to respond with a plain text, and then two, we're telling it to create this structured output. And I'll show you what this actually does in just a second, but we're telling this AI to find the name of the company and then also to format the website. So you can add other things here as well. So to do this, if you want to add something below here, you're going to add the variable name, so what it's going to actually fill in. So let's say I wanted to add the phone number. I don't even know if they have a phone number on there, but I'm just using this as an example. So we're going to add the name of the variable we actually want. So in my case, it's phone number, and inside of quotations. Then what we're going to do is add a colon and then give it a description as to what it actually is. So this one's pretty self-explanatory, but I could just say we first need to specify what kind of variable this is. So if you're familiar with coding, you know what I'm talking about. If you're not, I'll just look this up really quickly. Types of variables. We'll just say in Python. So we'll stick with the basic ones here. See if there's an image. Okay, we'll look at this. So yeah, so types of variables, we have integers, which are just numbers, and then we have floats, which are also numbers, strings, which are just text, so this is going to be the most common that you're using, characters, so single characters, and then booleans, which is just true or false. So that's kind of the basics of variables, but you're just going to specify the variable. So most of them you're going to be using are strings. I could do an integer actually. So an integer, just meaning it's a number that we want back. So an integer here is a number without a decimal place. So that's just any number that doesn't have decimal places. And then the float is any number with decimal places. So if I want a variable here for a phone number, I might choose an integer just because it's a number without a decimal place. So I can say I want an integer back containing the phone number of the company. Now, I don't even know if they have a phone number provided on their page or not. Probably somewhere at the bottom. I don't think so. So one thing we can do is actually add if not found, just leave it empty. So there we're just saying if you don't find a phone number, just leave it empty, and then find those other three things. And then here we're giving you the actual prompt. So passing into user messages here, and then here we're just giving it the markdown, which I dragged in from the HTTP request. So all you have to do is just drag that into there like that. And that fills in here. Make sure it's set to expression so it turns green. And I'm just saying that's the website in Markdown to summarize. Now here I'm saying output as JSON, and I'll run this so you can see what it actually does. So here you can see the output, And if I go to schema, which is this, it allows us to see the different variables and kind of fields that we have filled in there. And you can see what it does is it actually breaks up the fields. So we can directly reference just the name of the company. We can just reference the plain text of the website, and then we can just reference the phone number of the website. And you can see that that field is actually empty. Now, I believe it did output as a string, maybe not, but it's very cool. You can specify the type of information that you want it to respond with, and then you can change how it actually outputs. So you can tell it to actually output these specific variables directly into these fields here. So this is useful if you want to kind of organize this and are using these different things for different purposes. You might not want the name of the company in some steps, but you might want it in others. So it's a great way that you can actually separate these values out and just get them inside of one step right there. So the next thing we're doing is we're actually creating a document inside of my Google Docs account. And really quickly, I do need to show you how to connect to OpenAI. So if you haven't connected to OpenAI, you will have to do that. And we can do that by opening up this step here, selecting the credential to connect with. It'll have a drop down here, and we can select create new credential. Now we need an API key, and the rest we're just going to leave the same. So to get this API key, we're going to look up OpenAI API. Click on this page here. It takes me to their overview. I'm going to log in here really quickly. So once I log in, we're brought to this, I don't even know what this page is, but I guess their overview. So it doesn't really matter. We're going to get up to the top here and select dashboard. And then we're going to go over to the left side and select the API keys. Now here you're just going to select create new key. It'll ask you to name it, and then you can it'll give you the secret key. So you're going to want to write that down somewhere. And then once you've written that down, don't share it with anybody because it is actually connected to your account. You will have to add like $5 into this account, but it will last you a while. So don't share this, but copy that, and then we can go into N8N and paste your API key in here. Click save, and then that will connect to your account. So up next, when we are creating that document, this is giving the title, so the name of the website, and I could say something like company website, and then entering the name of the website. So this is again using all those different variables that we just created here, and that was the benefit of having the OpenAI model here output into different fields, so we can directly reference the name of the company, which is very, very helpful. Now, kind of the annoying part about this is that we cannot actually add text to this document yet, so that's what the next step is doing. However, I am going to show you how to connect your Google Docs account. So again, we're going to do the same thing. We're going to select the credential to connect with. I'm going to select this drop down and then select create new credential. Now this, we actually need a client ID and a client secret. So I'm going to show you exactly how to get these. And the first thing we're going to do is open this docs, select open docs here. And what this does is opens N8N's documentation. So they have really extensive documentation explaining everything that you would need to connect to N8N with. And this is connecting your Google Cloud project to N8N to access things like your Google Docs, Drive, Sheets, etc. So I'm going to show you how to do this. If you're still confused, come back to this documentation and it should help. And if you're still confused after that, drop a comment and I'm more than happy to help you set this up. But what we're going to do is go to Google Cloud. So I'm going to click Google Cloud. And then you might have to log in here. I'm already logged in. So what we're going to do is go up to the top right and select console. So I'm going to close out of that and we can see our home page here for Google Cloud. So what we want to do is we're going to create a new project. If you haven't done one, it might already ask you to create a project, but I already have some, so we're going to do create new project. So what I did was go up to the top left here, gives me my list of projects, and then create a new project. So any way that you need to go about doing that, create a new project, and then I'll walk you through this. So I'm going to call it this just so I know what it is actually talking about, but I would recommend calling it something like N8N Connect or N8N, something like that, so you know what this project is actually doing. So we can just leave it as no organization, name the project here, and then select create. So we're going to give it a minute to actually create our project for us here. And then once that project has actually been created, we then need to select on that project. So you can do that in this notifications tab here. I just select create, or just click select project right here. If you didn't do that, you can go back to the notifications, or we can go to the list of projects here again and just select that project that we just made. So you can see it says we're working in that project, and it also gives us that project name up to the top left here. So once we've selected that project, we're going to go to the menu here and go down to APIs and services. We are then going to go to the OAuth consent screen, and then here we're going to select get started. So we're going to make an app inside this project. Again, now I just name it something like N8N. We're going to add an email here, select next, and then we're going to select external. Click next again, add your email again. Click next, agree, continue, and then create. So now we're brought to this page with the metrics and the project checkup. So we're going to go over to the right side, and you can see it says create OAuth client. So I'm going to click on that, and then we're going to select the application type. Since we're connecting to N8N, it is a type of web application. Again, we can name that, so I would just name it something like N8N. And then we need to add a redirect URL. So we're going to select add URL here, and then we're going to go back to N8N. Under this connection, you can see it gives us that OAuth redirect URL. So just click on this, and it will copy it. And then we can go back and paste that in here. And then select create. And then we can click OK. So it gives us that client ID. And then we also need to get the client secret. So I'm going to click OK. And you can see it gives us that app here, or the OAuth client rather. And then we can click on that and open that up. So here is where we get access to the client ID. So you're going to copy this client ID and paste that into this section here. And then you're going to go back and get the client secret here. And again, paste that into this section here, or this section rather. And then click save, and then that will connect to your account. Now, there's one more thing we need to do. So if we go back to Google Cloud here, we can back out of this, and then we can go up to this search bar right here at the top. So we are connecting to Google Docs. So I'm going to search for Docs, and then select to Google Docs API. So once we're into here, we are going to select enable. And you can see it's now enabled the Google Docs API. Now one more thing we can do while we're here is enable the Google Drive as well. So type Drive, and then go to Google Drive API here, and then select enable on this as well. We're going to use this later in another step inside of N8N. And then really quickly before we go off of this Google Cloud page here, go back to the Google Drive node here, open this up, and then create a credential here as well, and then paste in the same client ID and the same client secret into the Google Drive node. Click save, and then that will connect to your account there as well. When you're doing that, you might be prompted to log into Google again. So select the Google account you just made or created a project inside of, and then I think it gives you a list of permissions maybe, but just log into your account and kind of go through that process. That's pretty self-explanatory. And then click save or whatever, and then it will say, give you a confirmation page basically saying that your Google Drive account and your Google Docs account are actually connected to N8N. So again, this Google Doc node here is creating the document for us and then giving it a title. And then here we are updating that same document, and we are just adding the text to that document. So your Google account will already be connected. We are updating a document, and then we are passing in the ID of that Google Doc here, and that just allows us to actually find that Google Doc that we just created, and then we are just adding text at the bottom of the field or the document there. And the text we are adding is going to be from the OpenAI step that we did previously, and it's going to be the plain text of the website. So you can edit this how you'd like. You can format this so you could give it like company and then colon. Maybe we want to drag in the name of the company again, and then we could say website and then have the website text fill in here. So that's just an example. You can kind of change this how you'd like, but that is what this is doing. And then after this, we are then adding this to a vector store inside of Pinecone. So up next we have the Google Drive node here. So you will have already connected your account, as I mentioned earlier. And then the resource, we are just downloading a file, and then we're passing that same file ID of the document that we just made. So what this does is it downloads the file, and then it passes it into the Pinecone vector store step here, and then we're inserting that into a Pinecone index. So I'll show you how to create that in just a second, but what we're doing is just inserting the document. So to do this, close out of these, and then we can go into Pinecone. So I'm going to look up Pinecone, and it is going to be pinecone.io. So we're going to open up their page here, log in or sign up if you need to. So once you log in, mine opens to the database section with indexes. You might get to the get started section. Either way, we're going to open up the database section and then go to indexes. We're going to then select create a new index. We can give it a name here, something like website database, whatever you're storing in this index. And then we can go to the configuration. We're going to scroll over to the OpenAI text embedding 3 small. And I'll show you why in just a second, but this is the configuration that you're probably going to want to use. You can use the large if you'd like. I'm going to show you with the text embedding 3 small, and then we can scroll down. We'll leave everything else here the same, and then we can select create an index. So you can see we don't have any records here, and the easiest way to add this is actually inside of N8N, and I'm going to show you how to do that. I have this set up already inside of the workflow that we're using, but we first need to connect our credential. So again, go to credential to connect with, select the drop down, and then say create new credential, and then we need our API key here. So we're going to go back to Pinecone, and you can probably see it on the left side here. We go to API keys, create a new key, and again it will just ask you to name it, and then you can give that API key, just paste it into here, click save, and then that will connect your account. So I'm going to close out of that, and then for the Pinecone index, you will just select from a list that will already be there, and then we can select the index that we just created. So it might take a little bit to actually populate in there. So you can see we actually get that in the list now. The website database is what I called mine. So again, the database indexes and then the website database. So we can click out of that once you've selected the index that you already made. We are using an embeddings model from OpenAI, and then that model is going to be the text embedding 3 small. So if you use the large, then change that in the embeddings model. This will already be set to 3 small. So if you selected text embedding 3 small, you don't have to change anything in here. And you've already connected your OpenAI account, so you won't have to do anything with this. And then the default data loader, this is set to binary. Again, you won't have to do anything with these, but we are having the type is binary. We're loading all the data, and then we are using a recursive text splitter. I just left everything in there the same, or the default that it fills in with. So now that we've connected everything, and connected our accounts, and created our index inside of Pinecone, I can run the rest of this automation and show you what it looks like. So we've created that document inside of our Google Drive. We're then going to add the information to that document. So if I open up this document, you can see this is what the information actually looks like. You can see the name of the document there, and then the text for the N8N website, the N8N homepage here. Now, one thing I'm not going to talk about just for the sake of time is crawling pages as well. So crawling basically includes, clicking on each of these links. You could tell it to go down each of these other ones. So if I open that up in a new tab, so the product overview, the integrations, crawling would basically go down each of these pages a certain number of layers down. So this would be one layer down. This again would be on the same layer down, and it would get all of the information off of those pages as well. So that is what crawling does. I'm simply just scraping all of the information off of just this home page. I'm not opening any links or anything. That you can do on Firecrawl as well. That was one of the options I mentioned earlier. So if you do want to do that, you can read through their documentation, but I'm not going to get into that just for the sake of time. But this is the home page for N8N here. And what we can do now is we added that information to the document. Now we need to actually get that document and download it. So I'm going to make sure I have my account connected correctly. So if it's ever not working, you can do what I just did. I'll show you what I just did in a second. So you're going to want to select continue, select all, and then continue again. Gives us that confirmation, so I can close out of that page, close out of that. Now I can try this again. So you can see we get that document. So it wasn't working, and that's because I just hadn't reconnected my account in a while. And to do that, you just click on this pencil icon right here. It gives you all this information, and you can see it says reconnect, so it asked me to sign in with Google. So what I just did was selected the Google account that I connected. It asked me, it kind of gave me a warning. I just selected continue anyways, as I know this is safe. And then it gave me a list of permissions to actually grant N8N2. And so I selected all for those, click continue, and then it connected my account again. So if you are ever running into an error, try reconnecting your account first before you try other things. That's probably the easiest fix. And you can see we now get that document, which is called data right here. So now that we've downloaded that document, we then need to insert it into our Pinecone vector store here. You can see it went through all of these steps here and inserted the document into our vector store. So if we go back to Pinecone, I'm going to refresh this page here. And you can see it is actually inserted records inside of this vector store. So yeah, now we can reference this. We can reference this vector store inside of other things like agents. So if we had another trigger for a chat message, then we went to an agent maybe. Quickly add the model. And then the tool, we can search for Pinecone vector store. And then we can give that a name, so we could say N8N website, something like that. Work with. And then we can select that from the list. So mine was website database. And then we need to add the embedding here. So again, we just add OpenAI and then the text embedding 3 small. So now this agent, whenever we are chatting to this agent, it has access to that database that we just created and inserted that document into. So this is very helpful if you are doing things like really anything that needs access to a company's website or would benefit from having the information on their website inside of a database to give an agent access to it. And I'm not really sure what else, but if you come up with any other use cases, drop in the comments below. And yeah, that's all I have for you today. If you have any questions, drop a comment below, And if you did get anything from this video, leave a like and subscribe. And yeah, have a good one.